Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me today. My name is Patrick Ray. I'm one of the retirement advisors here with the Retirement Group, and we appreciate your attention this afternoon. Today, we're going to talk to our Chevron folks, and specifically one of the most common questions that we get regarding what option they should take when they select their retirement decision, and if they should take the annuity payment or if they should take the lump sum payment. And so we're going to get into that today, and we're going to talk a little bit about why you may consider one and or the other. But before we do that, there's a few things that I want to cover with you. First and foremost, we have no affiliation at all with Chevron, nor do we have any affiliation with Fidelity. As it turns out, our experience over the last 30 years of being in business and dealing with people who are in positions similar to yours and helping them transition into a successful retirement. And we have a ton of experience on the team in an effort to help people who are with Chevron transition into a successful retirement. And we have offices across the country, and I personally am here in the Midwest. And because of our explicit knowledge of the savings plan and the pension benefits and medical benefits, we find that we're a very good fit for many of the folks who reach out for help looking for a partner in retirement. And so one of the reasons is because we spend a lot of time with them when we go through something called a cash flow analysis, which is a complimentary service that we offer to our folks to help stress test effectively where they will be and if they're on track to meet their overall retirement goals and their financial objectives. And so throughout the workshop today, you're going to find links into the chat to see and get access to some of the things we've recorded in the past, which we encourage you to peruse some of those videos at your leisure. Certainly, there's a lot of material that's there that's accessible that talks about a whole bunch of topics ranging from taxes and investment planning and retirement planning and behavioral characteristics in your decisions and things that are important, certainly to the people that we know we have spoken with in the past. And then you're also going to find links in the chat to give you access to our ebooks library, which are a bunch of short to read specific things related to topics and questions that we get asked on a regular basis. But the thing you may find most value of is taking a picture of this QR code and getting access to follow us on our LinkedIn page, because we update the current things that are going on at the company. Specifically, we have a lot of updates related to the interest rate environment and the economic environment and kind of things that you want to stay on top of and or pay attention to when you're thinking of certainly exiting payroll at some point in time in the future. And lastly, if you have questions about things that we have to talk about today, feel free to drop those in the question and answer box, and we'll do our best to get to those at the very end of at the end of the workshop. So Chevron has a lot of history, right? Some of our folks have come from heritage related to Unical and Texaco and Caltex and Gulf, and man, there's a whole bunch of history related to how the plans worked prior to Chevron being the sum entity that exists related to your pension plan. So we have a lot of different variables when we talk to our folks related to how their pension specifically works and what applies to them in general. What we'll do today is talk about just the specific distribution options. And so your forms of payment are related to either a lump sum, which has to do with and tied to the interest rate environment, which we'll talk here about in just a moment. And then there's a variety of annuity-based options that you can take with uniform table, which has to do with lifetime income. The single life annuity is going to be the single most biggest payment that you'll get each and every month from the company, assuming that you wish to take an annuity payment. And then there's different joint and survivor options along with different life and term certain options. But most all of this is correlated to when you decide to leave the payroll. And we'll talk specifically, and I'll zoom into this table to give you some parameters on the penalties that are involved in the plan itself. So remember, when you leave payroll, you can choose to defer your commencement of your pension. So the commencement of your pension certainly is crucial with respect to most of you who are considering taking the lump sum as a payment option. And so you'll want to know if and when that applies to you and how it applies to you, which we'll talk here in just a moment about. But what's most important is the timing of leaving the payroll and where you stand from a percentage perspective on what you can expect to gain from your pension, assuming that you take your pension prior to age 60. So the key is if you disperse your pension after age 60 when you're eligible, there are no discounts or penalties related to your pension plan. But you can see by this table that there's a various and variety of discounts that are related to what you would ultimately end up getting in the event that you choose to leave the payroll and commence your benefit prior to being age 60. So as an example, if you're eligible and you're age 55, you're going to receive 75% of your benefit. Now, the question often comes for us, which is, does it make sense for a 55-year-old to take their benefit, even though it's 75% of their total, as opposed to deferring it until age 60? So remember, there's some caveats to that with relationship to how you take your plan distribution. So if you decide to take the lump sum and you choose to walk with 75% of the amount in your pension, of course, the anticipation would be, or the expectation in most cases is, you take control of the money, you ultimately end up getting those monies invested, which are consistent with your tolerance for risk and your financial goals and your need for income and your objectives and things like this, and get that money working or earning interest to your benefit. And then compare that to potentially under certain parameters related to projections, what you could earn on that money, and see if that's going to be a better option than deferring your plan, as an example, until out to age 60. Of course, the catch with that, if you decide to take the lump sum, is you're going to be subject to interest rate risk. So remember, when the interest rates change, they change your lump sum. And so in a perfect world, you'd want to leave when the interest rate environments are the lowest. And frankly, the direct opposite is currently happening. If you take a look at how the interest rates have transitioned for the tax year of 2022, this is going to give you a really good understanding of how quickly they've risen, and more importantly, the negative aspect of what it means to your pension. So let's take a look at this a little closer in detail. So you'll see at the top, there's three different segment rates here: segment 1, segment 2, and segment 3. And those three different parts of the pension calculation for the interest rate have to do with the segment of time it's correlated with after you leave the payroll. So segment 1 deals with your first 5 years of retirement. Segment 2 deals with years 6 through 20. And segment 3 deals with 21 plus. So for most of you, the biggest impact of your pension calculation has to do with segment 2. And so if you decide to leave, your commencements only happen on the first of every month. So you can leave anytime in December, as it turns out. Today is December 7th. You leave in December, your commencement can be as early as January 1, which means the January 2023 blended rates are going to be consistent with the third, fourth, and fifth months prior to your commencement month. So in other words, you would negate the December and November rates, and you would assume the average of October, September, and August, which are the third, fourth, and fifth months prior to this particular example of a January commencement. And you can see that the blended rates are for segment 1, 4.46, for segment 2, 5.24, and for segment 3, 5.15. And the significance of these rates is correlated to what we show you in comparison to what it was 12 months ago, down here at the very bottom of this slide, where you can see in red. So you're going to see segment 1 is a 3.72% difference. Segment 2 is a 2.25% difference. And segment 3 is a 1.72% difference. And so the key is, roughly for every 1% of interest rate change, you can expect your lump sum to change somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 12%. Typically, the younger that you are, the more impact this transition has to you. So certainly from a planning perspective, this gives you somewhat of a crystal ball to be able to gauge when the most appropriate time for you to leave the payroll is, considering if you're assuming you're taking the lump sum and that the interest rates are correlated to your decision. Because as you can see in the tax year of 2022, in this given year, they've risen very fast. And they've done that to the extent where every time someone decides to retire, they've got to recalculate their benefits because they may be on the hook for losing tens and tens of thousands of dollars with respect to what's in their pension plan. So clearly, this is one of the biggest caveats to understanding what your pension benefit is all about, how it applies to you, and more importantly, what it means if you decide to leave in a given environment, let's say in December versus the first quarter of 2023 and trying to gauge what kind of impact the rates could potentially have with you. And this is pretty important. And so this is probably where the majority of our time is focused with our Chevron folks, as it turns out. But the reality is most of what you will gain as an advantage is the planning aspect of things. This is my 23rd year in our business, and I cannot recall anyone that I've ever spoke to that said it was a waste of time to spend several hours to even a week or more of planning time with trying to align their investment goals and their retirement objectives and their need for income to what they decide to do specifically with their pension, because, oh, by the way, this decision is irrevocable. And once you do that, what it means to you over your lifetime, certainly not just for you, but for your spouse in the event that you're married, and from a family perspective, because a lot of our Chevron people do legacy-oriented planning, because most of them don't spend all the money that they've saved and accumulated in their lifetimes. And so because we know that more people plan for a 2-week vacation than they do their retirement, it kind of gives us an unfortunate circumstance, because there's no reason for that. Frankly, this is something that you should take advantage of. It's a complimentary service that firms like ours do as a way to introduce their services to you. And if you're looking for a partner in retirement, this would be a vital way for you to stress test where you're at to ensure that what you're thinking is correlated to what's best for you. Is it best for you to take your lump sum at age 55 or 56, or should you defer that and take the interest rate risk associated with that and take the lump sum when you're 60 and there's no more penalties on your pension plan? So because most people over the age of 50 don't have a written plan, we know that this is where we spend a lot of our time with people to try to help them with that. And certainly we feel like this is a prudent thing for you to do, and we feel like you should take advantage of that, obviously. And if you're interested in doing so, there's a number of ways that you can reach out to us. You can call us at 800-900-5867. You can email us at info@theretirementgroup.com. And you can also, if you wish, to take a picture of this QR code to the left. It will get you access to a Chevron-focused retirement advisor, and you can schedule some time to talk with one of our team members in an effort to answer your questions specifically and talk further about the goals and objectives that you have and how you want to build a plan and what it looks like when you decide to retire, and try to see if that's consistent with what you've saved, and hopefully give you a track to meet your overall goals over your lifetime. This is also a picture of that QR code, again, from our LinkedIn page, and we encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn because it's a way for us to get updated information to you on a very regular basis. And so for those of you who have a mobile device, you may choose to do that. And with that, what I want to do is, I know there's a few questions that we want to address. And so what I'm going to do is bring those up now and talk to you about those questions, and then see if there's anything else we can do before we let you go for the afternoon. Okay, so let's see. Question number 1, when is the last day to leave Chevron and still take advantage of the current interest rates? And so your commencement happens once a month. And so you can retire anytime during the month and start or commence your benefit as early as the first day of the following month. And so for those of you who are still on the payroll, obviously December would be your earliest retirement month, and your earliest retirement commencement would be January 1st. So remember, the interest rates that you would associate with are correlated to this schedule. And so I'll bring this back up for you just to kind of look as it turns out. For those of you who are considering leaving in December, you're going to commence in January, which means that you would get rid of December's rates and November's rates, and you would take a combination of the October, September, and August rates, which are the 3rd, 4th, and 5th months prior to your commencement. And then your rate for that particular commencement would be 4.46 for segment 1, 5.24 for segment 2, and 5.15 for segment 3. So hopefully that answers that question, but the correlation to your exiting the payroll is once a month, basically. So you can commence as early as the following month for your to gain the advantage of keeping those interest rates. Okay, question number 2. If I buy an annuity with my lump sum, is that better than taking the company annuity? Great question. The answer is maybe. For the same reasons we're talking about the disadvantage of what the interest rate is doing to your lump sum. So when the interest rates go up, your lump sums go down. We are also talking about the advantage of what happens to fixed interest environments. So remember, from an investment perspective in the fixed income world, interest rates are going up. As recently as last week, I bought a CD for a 12-month window for a client that was paying over 4%. Now, you could argue that because of what inflation is doing, you're still losing money, right? If inflation is 7% and you're only earning 4% on your money, you're still behind. But the reality is that it may make some sense to consider this question, because if you could take your lump sum today and turn around and regurgitate your own annuity payment, the vehicles that you would consider in an effort to do this are correlated to the interest rate environment. So as interest rates go up, the payments for those types of investment vehicles go up as well. So it's very possible for you to consider taking the lump sum payment and then just buying your own annuity of some sort in an effort to get a max payout on your benefit, and then still control the funds, because most of those vehicles have death benefits payable to your spouse and or to your family members in the event that you suffer an untimely death. So I would argue strongly that it's something that should be considered. I don't know that there's a blanket answer that says you should or shouldn't do it, but in retrospect to all the things that we've seen here, certainly in the last 30 days or so, we've been able to take lump sum payments and get higher annuity payments for many of our folks because of what the interest rate environment is doing to the fixed income world and what it means to buying your own annuity. So the answer is maybe, and certainly you should be considering that in the event that you're considering leaving the payroll and not sure what option pension-wise to accept. Okay, another question. Is my lump sum taxed differently than an annuity? Well, I suppose the answer is it depends. The reality is hopefully the answer is no, because what would happen if you don't do your rollover correctly is disastrous, right? I mean, basically, you have a problem with income tax because A, if you make the check for your lump sum payable directly to yourself, it's completely taxable to you. So you pay 100% income tax on that money. And if you're not 59 and a half, it's a penalized distribution. So you're going to owe a 10% penalty on the total on top of that. So clearly the idea is, if you're going to consider the lump sum, to roll that money over into an IRA where you control those funds and pay no tax on that transaction. So when you decide to start taking income at some point in time, that money is income taxable to you. So you're going to pay federal income tax on the distributions at a given time whenever you decide to take them from your IRAs. And the annuity works the same way. So when you take the annuity payment and you take a monthly check, you're going to get taxed on a 100% income basis on that check. So in theory, once the rollover is done correctly, the answer is there is no difference with the taxation aspect of it. But there's some small caveats. If you start a payment prior to age 59 and a half from your IRA and you have not set up a 72T distribution, then those payments are subject to 10% penalties. And so whereas your pension payment is not subject to a penalty regardless of how old you are when you take that payment. So there are some mixed results with respect to how you take these distributions, but in general, the income taxable nature of taking the annuity payment and ultimately what comes out of your IRAs is income taxable to you on the federal side. And then on the state side, it depends on where you reside. So if you reside in Texas, as an example, there's no state tax. So you're not going to pay state tax on that, but you may in another state when you decide to reside in a state that has state income tax. So hopefully that answered the question. And basically that sums it up for the afternoon. I appreciate your attention this afternoon. I hope you found some value in spending some time with us. And certainly if you have some questions, feel free to reach out to us at 800-900-5867. You can email any questions or concerns that you have at info@theretirementgroup.com, and check us out on our LinkedIn page. We do a lot of updates there, and we have these webinars on a very regular basis. So hopefully we'll see you in the future. So with that, I'll leave you for the afternoon. Everyone stay safe and have a great day. Take care.